Dylan, how are you?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Sorry, I took me a second to get in. My
No,
computer
you're
wasn't
all
cooperating.
you're all good, man. We know technology over here, big time. I had to cancel. I think I had like 3 or 4 podcasts within 3 days, and I had to cancel every one of them because my equipment stopped working. My microphone was like bugging out, and so I was like, "Oh God!" So
Yeah,
technology is not everybody's friend. Uh, but
yeah,
but man, I appreciate you coming back on here, man. I know it's been a long time. Since
yeah,
the beginning,
yeah,
since the
man.
beginning, since the beginning of the show. Was it 5 years ago? Long
I think
time.
so. I feel like it was like 2019 when we
It's
first talked.
a long time ago.
And you've done some amazing things. I've been watching. Congratulations on the success of your show. It's been really you getting some good guests and doing great things. It's awesome.
Well, man, I appreciate it. I said earlier this year talking to one of my buds, and I was like, because he did Big Shrimp Radio before he retired it, and I was like, man, 2023, because we had a crappy year the past couple of years, 22, 21, and then I was like, 23 is going to be the year, and then who knew that 23 was going to be everybody's year, because it seems like
hmm
everybody that I know and everybody that I enjoy have just had like a great year.
hmm Good,
So
good
how
for you.
so how was your 23 been?
It's been busy.
Yeah,
Making a lot of work, writing a lot of songs, producing a lot of work. Um, it's just you got to do it every day. It's a daily, grind
yeah,
of it of just doing the best you can, trying to write as best you can, and I'm sure it's the same with you. It's just trying to keep putting the work out and build your show and build my work. So it's really the same thing. I'm sure. I bet that's the same for you, right?
yeah. You kind of have to find out what works and what doesn't work, and
Yeah,
what works, go more for it, and what does the work,
yeah,
kind of keep it out and kick it, down the road. Maybe come back
yeah,
to it later.
yeah.
But I want to talk about a little bit of this album to begin with, and then we'll make a full circle because we've got like 4 or 5 years to catch up with. So this album, Storyteller, man, again, I've always been a fan of you since I had you on the show, and there's one song, 2 songs actually in here that I really really enjoyed. Um, Either way, which is kind
Mm,
of a letter to God. It's like, hey man, why are you
mhm.
doing this? But guess what? I trust in you, so it's
Right,
okay. Either way, if you make me happy, you make me sad. Guess what? Either way, I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna live. And then
right.
they said it wouldn't last. That's kind of like
Mm.
I kind of want to know that. I kind of want to know that about that first. So, is that a true story? Because if so, that's a rough story, man.
It's so funny. First of all, thank you for listening and thank you
Yeah.
for having me on the show. It's just fun. Yeah, they said it wouldn't last. No, it's not a true story. It's funny. We had that title
Okay.
for a while, and we were like, how would we just thought it was a cool title, and it hadn't really been done before, and we're like, well, how would that be? And we just kind of went with it, and it ended up being a little bit funny, in terms of the singer, all the family saying they said it
Mm.
wouldn't last, and then, just how they treated him. But then, the couple eventually, makes it in their lives, and they said it wouldn't last. So it's funny that you say that because I that's a song that I don't really think much about, but it is a song people keep referencing. So maybe I need to pay attention to that. But yeah, it's got a little bit of comedy. Did you feel the comedy coming through, or did you just see it as a love song? I'm curious as to what your reaction is, because the
Um,
album's only been out a couple weeks.
I saw a little bit of I was re-listening to it this morning before you jumped on, and uh, the bridge where you're like, now they're
Mm.
showing our kids to their friends, and it's like, I bite my tongue and shake my head because they weren't like this before. And
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
they said it
but
would
I
last.
th- but I think, Richard, it's people drawn to it because though it's not a true story, it is somebody's true story.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it
no, I
is
bet a
somebody's
lot.
story.
Yeah, I agree, and well, first of all, I love that you picked up on that bridge, and
Mm.
uh, but that's what I love about songwriting is, how do you just make that little turn somehow to make a bigger message of it? But you're right, a lot of people probably feel that way, and then people reverse course and so forth. But that's kind of what I love about the writing process, is trying to take that song to a different place with that. With what you just said is like the full recall at the end. You kind of tell the whole story, and then the bridge comes out and gives that next level message. So it's good that you got that. It shows it's clear, you know. But yeah, as I've progressed in this, I've made 6 albums now, 5 are out, and I've started to just do what's fun for me, you know. Like that's kind of it's a little bit of a silly song. I used to be so much more like, I've got to make this kind of country pop, you know, big sound, or, you know, it's got to be, you know, a love song, or it's got to be something, you know, really fresh and modern. But lately it's been more like, oh, let's just have some fun with it, you know, and do some lighter stuff, do some funny stuff, maybe do some Christmas songs, maybe do a kid's song. And I'm really starting to enjoy that, because I feel like I've got enough work now that I can just kind of, you know, augment and go into different places and not worry too much about it. That song's last on the album, and it's funny, it's the one people keep mentioning. I've put no no like energy behind it, but you just never know. I mean, that's the funny thing about writing and what you do. You just never know what someone might like, you know. So you just got to keep making work and see what people like and put it out there. You know, I think it's the same thing you do. You just keep doing your show, and it grows, you hope. So I don't know if that helps answer the question.
No, but you made a good point in that chat, where you're doing what you want to now, and besides doing what's popular. And I think that's important, because you're just going to go stir crazy if you're trying to recreate every hit song that happens.
Oh yeah. You got to let go. I mean, it's so hard what we do, and writing and producing, and I just read the new Rick Rubin book. I don't know if you've read that book about obviously, you know, production and writing.
I didn't know he had a book out.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Wow,
but
okay.
And there's a lot of, you know, past literature of like just that letting go of, once you put the work out there, it's not in your control. You know, the best I can do is make the very best song I can make sure the writing's as tight as possible, make the production as best as it can be, work with the best people. And then you just have to put the work out and let go, because I can't control, you know, who listens to it, who likes what. I mean, clearly I'm I promoted all the other songs on the album and not that one. So I don't have any idea of what someone would like. And so you just have to like put it out and do the best you can to promote it, and then you move on. So I think that's kind of what you're tapping into, of just, you know, doing what you love and keep doing it, you know.
So you've also got a Christmas song you gladly sent over, which was Christmas Shopping.
Yes.
And you know, there's one, before we get to that, I picked up a theme in the Storyteller album. I don't know if it was on purpose or if it was, you know, just by happenstance. You talk a lot about Thanksgiving in the Storyteller album, as well as the Christmas song. So yeah, you're like Thanksgiving here, Thanksgiving there. There's another song, and I was like, I like, if this is on purpose, I enjoy what he's doing, because he's like, I'm going to drop it around Thanksgiving, so let's throw some little clues in there.
Oh wow! I see. This is why I love talking to you. I remember from last time, I was just telling my wife this morning. I remember talking to Dylan, a few years back, and it was just such a great conversation, because he's so insightful, and you kind of pick up on things. But you're right. I never even thought that through, and we're talking Thanksgiving's Thursday.
Yeah, so less than a week.
It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny, but yeah. Well, you're probably picking up on the kids' table, which is another one where, you know, that one is one of my favorite songs. You know, the idea is that, you know, when you have Thanksgiving, you know, a bunch of people come over, friends and family, and you just never know. And sometimes the conversation isn't, you know, you want to get away from it. And so that's my attempt at showing, well, you could sit at the kids' table, which is something I've always enjoyed. I've always loved being with the kids. But you're right, we centered it around the Thanksgiving theme to kind of set up the song around that. And you're right, they said it wouldn't last kind of plays into that too. I never thought of that. And then Christmas Shopping kind of tells the history of the holidays in terms of when people come into it. But yeah, you know, I would say one thing I've learned through my writings, I love the holidays. You know, I love it's its own form of songwriting, I think, of writing the Christmas songs and the Thanksgiving songs. I get to do them once a year, and it's probably the worst idea commercially because you have, 4 weeks to put out a Christmas song and hope somebody listens to it. And then it's not relevant anymore. But I don't know. I love that lane. It's just something different. And I'm grateful that I get to do those offshoots. I think that's maybe what you're picking up on is I'm kind of
Sure.
just going in a bunch of different directions and just seeing where it takes me. And with the Christmas song, one of the cool things I've learned, I've done 2 of those now,
Mhm.
and I've recorded them both in New York City. All my other work has been in Nashville. I made one record in Boston, and one thing that I've learning is like every city's different. Like you're where? You're Mississippi?
I'm Mississippi. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you go make music, um, when you go to Nashville, it's a thing.
Mm.
My Nashville records are there's a the players, the producers, the writers, the town. It's just have you been in I'm sure you've been in Nashville, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just so set up around music, and it is awesome.
Yeah.
Boston's its own thing, but New York City is its own thing, and I'm like, I just feel like making a Christmas song, it has to be New York City. It just feels like that's the right place to do it. And what's really cool is the players are different, the vibe's different, and then you put myself in that town or city, and you're different. So it's just that's another thing I've been exploring is making music in different cities. It's just there's something different about it, and there's something cool, and it changes you, and it changes the music, and it changes who you're collaborating with, and that's something I've been enjoying too. It's like I haven't got out to LA or Chicago, but I bet that's different, and just making music with different people in different places is it's just a different way to explore the art. So it's different towns, it's different, Thanksgiving or Christmas, or I have a kids song I'm working on, but then you have the country pop and the love songs, and you mentioned either way, sort of trying to spread different messages. I don't know, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm just exploring all these different avenues, and um it's just what's better than that? It's fun. It's probably like
It's
you, every day is a new guest, right? So
well for you in New York. Is it important to record those Christmas songs in New York because it is so publicized? That like Frank Sinatra did a lot of recording in New York, and Michael
mhm.
Bublé, who is kind of
Mm.
one of the kings of Christmas, does all the stuff in New York. So kind of is it a different vibe that way that Christmas music is known to be recorded in New York, or is fantasized to be New Yorkish?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have a new song coming out, well, that I've written and I'm producing next, and it's one of the lines is "Elf is on in the living room," and
Mm,
when you look at that movie, I love that movie, and it's in New York City. I don't know, maybe it's the snow, maybe it's just that a lot of movies
yeah.
have been made there, a lot of records have been made there. My one from 2 years ago is "It's Never Too Soon for Christmas," and I did that with a big band, and
Mhm.
it was like 17-piece big band. And I don't know, it just felt right to be in that town. And when I think of Christmas, I guess I think of New York City. So it could also just be me. Now I'm sure people in Nashville would say we can make great Christmas songs here too, and they could, but I don't know. I've just been trying to test out different places, and I like going away and making it, you know, and being kind of outside of my normal life, just for a little bit to like work on stuff. So I don't know. You don't think of
Is it
Christmas when you think of New York City?
No, I do. That's why I brought up the
Yeah,
subject because
yeah, yeah,
uh, because a lot of because when you think of Christmas, everybody has their own Christmas traditions, and a lot of them include watching Christmas films. And a
yeah.
lot of the Christmas movies, man, are New Yorkish, or they're big cities, or
Hmm.
they're because nobody ever like Southern Christmases are different than
Mm,
city Christmas, I think, because
right.
it's probably way too hot here when it's like -0 over there, or whatever, and
Right.
it's 70 here. But I think it's pop culture that culturalizes the Christmas aspect of it has to be a big city, or it has to
Yeah.
be this, because there's never those small town Christmas Christmas. It's always the, we have to travel to the big cities type of thing. So I do.
Right. Yeah.
Like, and this year especially, man, I think this year is the most holidayish I felt in a very long time. And I think that has to do with a lot of aspects, but it's like, now I got nephews that are 4 and 2, and I got a niece that's 1, and it's like they are able to actually understand the prospect of, of Christmas, and you're like able to, you can go shop for them and you have to stress about, are they really going to like this, or because they're not really going to care in about a day or two, and and so I wonder for you though, when you're recording a Christmas song in July, are you having to like how do you get into the Christmas spirit in like an odd month?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I always tend to write them. Actually, I've written them in all sorts of different places. I usually tend to write them around the holidays. I get into that, like the kids table. The way that song came about was I was working with my co-writer and we were writing the week before Thanksgiving. And I was like, what do you always start a write and you just kind of talking. And I said, what are you doing? And he was telling me his plans. I was telling him mine. And somehow we got on the subject of, it can get a little crazy, the conversation, people get into politics or whatever. And I said, I said, I totally get it. I said, I'd rather sit at the kids' table. And we were both like, oh, that's a interesting idea. And we wrote it, and so it was that being that week before Thanksgiving and you're kind of in that zone and we kind of, it worked. Same with Christmas songs. I tend to write them later in the year, but you're right, to bring them out, you do need to record them. It's never too soon for Christmas. I did in July. This one I did in October and November. So it was really, and I'm working on one now, but I've often thought that, like, would it be cooler to be doing it, around the holidays, but that's sometimes tough to do. So yeah, I don't know. It's, sounds like you enjoy the holidays too. There's just something about it. And it's so specific, Christmas has great visuals too, in terms of, that there are a lot you can bring into a Christmas song that you can't bring in with other songs, throughout the year. There's just so many visuals that I like exploring and playing with. So yeah, it's just a different lane, and it's nice to. A lot of people do it, and I get it. It's just I always tell the story because I was thinking, like, why do I love doing Christmas music so much? And I remember my dad, who's passed away now. He never put music on around the house ever, but on Christmas Eve and for Christmas he had this like old stereo and these old big brown speakers and a tape deck, and he would put on Christmas music. It was the only time that he put on music around the house, and he was in a good mood and people were coming over, and I love the warmth of it, and having the tree up. So I don't know, maybe that's why I like it. It just kind of brings me to that place of that kind of warmth, and every, generally people are kind to one another, and it's just a little bit more of a mellow time. I don't know. It's hard to say why I love doing it so much.
Yeah. You know what I like about you as an independent artist, Richard, and that's you put so much effort into your music. Like when I say that, I mean, I obviously I've interviewed my fair share of independent artists, and a lot of the times their album covers are very cheap making. They look very cheap. The music sounds it sounds produced, but it's like they produced it themselves and they're learning. But for you, it's like, especially the Storyteller album cover, it looks very professional, like it was put out by maybe Warner Brothers. It just looks very well done. And I just want to give you props for that, because not a lot of independent artists take their pride in that.
Well, thank you for that. It's I work hard at it, and it's I'm independent, but I love the work the major labels do. I just think the quality is just so strong. I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, no, I mean, there's a lot that you can't do, at my level and independent. Like, they own Spotify and they have a lot of advantages, and that's hard. But I'm always trying to raise my game and make a better song, write a better song, produce it better. What does the visual look like? And I look back over the 7 years I've been kind of doing this in this iteration and working hard at it. And I feel like every year I'm like, oh, or maybe something I did 3 years ago doesn't look so good, or I don't like it. So it's that balance of like, you got to leave it because that's your trail, that's your work. But then, if I could beat it, I'm always trying to beat it. And I think that's hopefully what you're seeing is just, uh, it's funny because in the Rick Rubin book, he says the only way you can know when you're making good work is by making work. You have to make bad work. You have to make mediocre work, pretty good work, great work. And that's what I'm learned. Like the more I do it, the better my muscle gets at figuring out, is this really any good, or is this really satisfying to me or not? And if it's not, my bar just keeps raising. It's like, I don't want to put it out, or I don't want to do it if it's not, the best that I can do. And the only way I've been able to learn that is by failing and failing and repeating and,
Right.
repeat, rinse. And then sometimes things work. Sometimes you put out a song and, one of probably my favorite song is a song everybody in Nashville said, this is a great song. This is an A+ song. It's not a hit, but it's a great song. It's a Bluebird song. It's a song that I wrote for my daughter, Don't You Grow Up On Me Now. And
Right.
we put
Yes.
it out 5 years ago. It was an album cut. And lo and behold, now 5 to 10 new videos are made on Instagram, Reels, TikTok to this song, with people with their kids, with their dogs, with proms, with, first day of school, last day of school, on their swing sets. So it's connected with people. It's not this huge hit, but it's grown on its own. I've put nothing behind it. And it's just a ode to my daughter, how I don't want her to grow up. It's just a feeling, everybody can kind of tap into as a parent. But it's connected with people. So you never know. It's kind of like they said it wouldn't last. And so you just keep trying to do the best work that you can, and be patient and just keep doing it and make it the best you can be. And nobody really knows. That's the hard part of what's going to connect with somebody or not.
And if you're not putting out music that's trying to beat the previous music, are you even in it anymore? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, are you even in, because I don't know about you, Richard, but earlier this year, I stopped doing this for a while. I just needed a break. And then when I had that break, Richard, I was like, you know what? I don't really miss this. Like, I didn't miss it for a bit. And I was like, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, that's a problem. Something's happening. Let's fix it. So I talked to my therapist, and I was like, something's going on here. I don't miss it. And we come to terms that, so earlier this year, I started, I'm a journalist for the newspaper here in town. And I basically
you've interviewed great people too. I see your work. It's awesome. You just did John Stamos, and I mean, it's awesome.
Let me tell you about the John Stamos story, how that came about. So I read his book, right? So I read his book, and of course, Full House is my all-time favorite show, all time.
Great show.
And I was like, you know what? I wrote a review for the book in the paper, and I was like, I'm just gonna throw this up on socials, and I'm gonna send it to John Stamos. He's never gonna see it, but what if he does? And it was the second one, if he does, and he did.
Yeah.
And he like reposted the thing on there, and like we got more weight. We got hundreds of more subscriptions to the paper, and we're doing all this stuff, and then. I actually, and it's crazy, dude, I have started having a friendly conversation and relationship with John Stamos just because of that. And it's like, now I'm like in talks with him coming on the podcast, and I'm like, it's like, what is happening? And it like,
yeah.
And it's, but because of, we realized with the therapist that, me being a journalist with here, I kind of got my fix that way. And so it was kind of, now it was like, okay, now you need to work on yourself and combat how you can get your fix both ways. And so I've done a couple of things, and I've come to the point that I was just working way too much on this, like, and because I couldn't do a 60-hour job a week and then come here and do another 80-hour job week here. So it's like, you know what? I'm just going to record episodes as they come. I'm not going to stress about having to have one every. I'm not going to stress about having to have one every week. Because I've already grown my audience in 6 years, right? So it's not like I just started 6 months ago and I'm putting one out every 4 months. So I've come to the combat of that. But have you ever? have you ever had that thought where you're like,
Yes.
okay, so you've had that thought of, I don't miss it. What do I do to start missing it again?
Yeah, you're really tapping in. I really relate to what you just said. It's something I've been thinking a lot about too, is how do you find the middle path of working really hard on your work and letting go? You can't do nothing because nothing will happen, and you can't do too much because you'll get burned out. And so it's about finding the right balance of doing things. And in
Richard, let me do you one better. Let me do you one better. There's a different in the middle path of overworking and overexerting yourself.
Yeah.
But putting out the best products you've ever done, and you do not have a great listenership at that point. Versus, I'm going to stop. But what if I could take this when I'm stopped? If I take this 4 months that I'm done, and I could have had really one great month of episodes or guests or music or albums, and have been the biggest listenership I've ever had. It's a hard thing to balance. You don't know what to do. But I think that's what I love about it so much. And you is about music as well.
But I love that your John Stamos conversation, you kind of let go, and then you started to focus on the other stuff, and now you might get him on the podcast. So there's one of my favorite quotes is T.S. Eliot. There's only the trying, the rest is not our business. It's kind of like what we were talking about. Like, you have to keep doing the work and put it out and then let go. Really hard to do, because you and I, we both want something. We're both, trying to build a career. But I love that about what you're saying. And so it's kind of hard you don't want to do too much, but you want to do the right amount. And it's kind of like the story I told about the Don't You Grow Up On Me Now. Like, that just kind of happened. I didn't, obviously I wrote the song. It was important to me, and I wrote it with a great co-writer, and I produced it and I put it out. But sometimes stuff just happens, and there's like the grace of it. It's like the John Stamos thing. And it's like there's some sort of assisting force somewhere. It's kind of what Either Way is about. You mentioned the first song. It's like a lot of times the bad things that happen to you are the best thing to happen to you. So many times in my life when I've had setbacks, a year later, I'm like, that was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I either got out of that situation or I learned something from it and I applied it here. But sometimes you do need to take a break too. You just need to let go and let things kind of catch up to you. So I don't know, we're getting into a lot of life lessons, but I do feel like the art and the creativity help you learn that. I learned really good lessons through writing and working with people, and you don't do anything on your own either. You're always collaborating with people. And I don't know, does that kind of resonate? It's kind of feel like what you're saying.
Yeah, 100%. It resonates big time, because things you don't. It's those that like you don't. It's like a sleeper. Like, you don't expect it to be the big thing, because either you don't think it's your best work, or there's better things than this one. And then it turns out the one that you slept on, or the one that you looked down upon, is the biggest one you've ever had.
Yeah. You always want, we always want more. That's one thing I found. Like, you always, want something to be bigger. It's kind of hard to just be grateful for. I mean, we're having a nice conversation. Like, I'm just kind of grateful to be talking with you. You know what I mean? Like, it's the best you can do. But yeah, it's just a part of life that you try to figure out, as you go. And hopefully you get more skillful each year, each song, each podcast, and you get a little bit better. It's like not linear either. I think that's the other thing. It's like so many ups and downs, but then you hope over time you're growing, and you're learning by that break you had to take, or or how did the John Stamos thing, like, how did that happen? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just interesting to always be dissecting things and think. So you have to really work hard at it, but you got to let go too. And it's like, and I don't know, there's something about it. I don't really know fully, but I know there's something there that what we're talking about.
Yeah. It's funny. The John Stamos thing happened kind of like the Hardy thing happened.
I saw you did Hardy too. Yeah.
I did an album review for Hardy, sent it over, and actually didn't send it over. I guess somebody had sent it to them in Nashville, and they're like, "Hey, Dylan, whatever." They do the podcast, and they liked it, whatever. And
Yeah.
I was like, "I'm just going to shoot my shot. Why not?" And I said,
Yeah.
"Could I interview Hardy before because he's coming to Biloxi here, beginning of December?" And I was like, "Can I interview him just for the sake of interviewing him about the show?" And they're like,
Yeah.
"Sure." So like, I think Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, I'm interviewing Hardy on the podcast, and for the thing. And the thing is, that's and it's like you say, you just have to, and it's what if you didn't find your groove? Like what if you didn't get your groove back?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
because
I'm with you. I think about, like, I don't know if it's every day, but I have plenty of days where I'm like, should I just stop? Why am I doing this? Like, but then I was thinking, well, if I won the lottery, I mean, I would really be doing it. Like I could do so much more.
100%.
So then I say, well, I do love it. It is my passion. It's what I love to do. I like the people. I mean, musicians are generally great people. The people that I work with, they're good people. And so, but yeah, you always have setbacks. You're always in your head, in your heart, trying to think about, wow, it's not where I want it to be. But then I think, well, I've grown a lot. I've learned a lot. And what else would you be doing with your time? And so that's always my test. If I won the lottery and I'd still be doing it, yeah, I should probably still be doing it, and just trying to learn the lessons along the way of the work.
When you bring that up, I immediately think of a Mark Cuban quote, which is, if you're doing what you love now as hard as you can without making any money, imagine the hard work you're going to put in when you start making money from the thing that you love. Yeah. And it's like, once that happens for both of us, man, like I'm sure you're making money. I am as well with sponsorships, but it's like nowhere near where you're happy.
Yeah.
Like,
that's the hard, that's the hard thing about art, which I can, you're an artist too, in terms of building your show. The amount of work that we put in versus the result, it just makes no sense at all. So you have to love it. You have to, and what I've seen with the people, Hardy's probably a good example. Like, there's a saying, every 10 years, an overnight success happens every 10 years or so, because it takes so much to get good at something and gain mastery of it. And I'm not by any stretch there myself, but I can feel myself kind of growing and developing, and you always want it to happen faster. It's like, you plant seeds in a garden. You can't be digging up the seeds every day to try to see if it's growing. Like, you just have to sometimes let it be patient. And look at you. I mean, you hit a wall 6 months ago, and you stopped for a little while, and now you have probably two of the biggest people on the show, potentially. How great is that? Sometimes you got to take a step back and regroup. It's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Because
I think if I would have going, if I wouldn't have stopped, dude, I would have had, like, if I wouldn't have taken that break to think, I would have had I would have been in like a mental institution or something. Like, I would have had like a mental break. And I think that's the best thing about music is you guys really only put out one album a year, maybe one every two and a half. Or there's those, those random Eric Churches or Sam Hunts that put one out whenever they feel like it, every 5-6 years.
Yeah.
But so I kind of want to switch gears on. I kind of want to know, for you, Richard, besides your own album Storyteller, which is available right now, what's the best album you've heard so far this year? We're sitting on, what is it, November 18th. So what has been the best album you've heard so far this year? Any genre?
Yeah, man, the person that inspires me, I want to think on this for a second because I want the right answer, but I already know. It's Brett Eldredge. I don't know if you like Brett Eldredge.
I love Brett Eldredge, man.
Oh my God. In fact, he was the person that brought me into the Christmas genre.
He's Mr. Christmas.
He is. And in fact, his production team and all the players are the same as my first Christmas song.
Wow.
So his that's a whole nother story that's really sort of synchronistic. But his Sunday Drive album is incredible. His Christmas albums. I mean, he's just an amazing singer in my opinion. He's probably the best singer that I
Yeah.
feel. But I think uh, he's kind of doing his own thing too. I mean, he started in that whole country pop thing, and now he's doing Christmas albums. He's doing, adult contemporary stuff. But there's a song on his Sunday Drive album called Sunday Drive that it raises the hair on my arm. I played it
Mm.
when I played it for my wife. We both got emotional. Like
Yeah,
it's
man.
so
Ooh.
good, and it's not a hit or anything like that. It's a simple song about reflecting back when he was a kid and just going for a ride with his parents, and watching
So
the world as everything goes by. But there's just so few songs there. It's like, oh man, it gets me every
yeah.
time.
So for those that don't know the song, I don't know if you know this little background about the Sunday Drive. The song, the Sunday Drive song,
Yeah,
is he used
I
to
know.
be
I know a lot about it.
he
Yeah.
used to be a clerk at one of the major music labels in Nashville. And he heard that song come through the airway. So what he used to do is he used to listen to these songs and would pitch them to all these other producers and be like, hey, send this to whoever.
Mm-hmm.
And he heard Sunday Drive. And he's like, somebody better not cover this, because when I become an artist, this is my song that I'm going to do. And just so happened, nobody cut it. And he kept it for himself, and he cut it. And that song, for those that are listening, it starts out where he's a little kid. And their tradition as a family is to go on a Sunday drive.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't realize that. He thought they were just watching the world go, but he was realizing that it's about family and spending time together, no matter what you're doing. And then at the end of the song, he turns it on you, and he's like, my parents are old. They're aging.
Yeah.
I'm going to continue the tradition and take them on a Sunday drive as well before they're no longer here. And it's like again, hair raising.
I just got goosebumps hearing you tell me about it.
I did too, man. It is.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think pound for pound today, Brett Eldredge is the best to do it.
Yeah. It's a great. I'm glad you shared that story because we had a little glitch.
Okay.
I'm so glad you shared that story because that's what I had heard too. And he waited too. He didn't do it too early. Like he felt like he needed to mature.
Right.
So he waited till like, I don't know, his fifth album or something to do it. And the music on that album is just it's just art, but that song, and what is it about that song? I mean, this is what I love about songwriting, and I'm nowhere near where what they did with that song, but it's like, how do you find that little kernel of life that taps into something so profound and deep? I've been able to do it in just like these little spots, like just at a small level, and that's what I'm after, but in that song, it's hard to really explain what it's about. You just feel it, and it's just so deeply profound and so touching. And the fact that he waited, the fact that it was just sitting there, and that's a story in Nashville. There's just so many great songs out there that haven't found a home, and it's just, I don't know, there's a lot of lessons in it, but great song. So he's definitely the person that inspires me the most.
I'll tell you this, Richard, that song reminds me of, like, songwriting wise, and I hate to bring this up into country music, but in my opinion, I think Bruce Springsteen is one of the greatest songwriters to ever exist, because he is able to take words that do not rhyme and bend them to make them fit into that song somehow. And I feel that's what Sunday Drive is like a reflection of kind of like a Bruce Springsteen written song, where it's not supposed to mend, it's not supposed to make sense. Those words aren't supposed to go with that melody, but somehow they made it work and they made it fit.
Yeah. Well, we could talk about Springsteen for an hour. I'm also remembering this with you. I remember this with you from whenever we talked last.
Sure.
I felt like we both had the same musical references. I mean, the fact that you know about Sunday Drive is uncanny for me, because like nobody knows that song. Like, so I remember this from last time, that we have the same sort of, either just you're just as into music as I am, so you kind of get all the references. But yes,
well, I'm just an album person. I'm just an album person. Like, a lot of people are like, I'm not going to sit there and listen to a 16-track album. But like for me, when Morgan Wallen release like the 40-track album he did this year, I was like, great, because now I can make my own album out of those 40-something songs.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
because
that's cool.
Because if I don't like all 40, I can make easily a 23-track album or a 10-track album, and it'd be the perfect album I've ever heard.
I never thought of that. That's interesting. But anyway, yeah. Sunday Drive. I can't say enough about. But his Christmas stuff too. I don't know if you've listened to that, but it's it's insane.
Let me tell you something.
I was so inspired by it.
The first Christmas song from Brett Eldredge that literally made me cry, and was literally the only song I've ever had to go drive over to, and I was like, you have to listen to this song. Was his rendition a cappella of the first Noel.
Mm-hmm. That
was like, this guy can sing. Like, I think at that point he was the country guy. You knew he could sing a little bit, but can't all singers sing? And so, but he was like, I'm going to put it all out there at this point. And it was like, this guy can really belt. And it's a beautiful rendition of that song. And that's, I don't really listen to that much Christmas music, unless it's on the radio, but I will, during the holidays, we'll go and check out Glow.
Oh God, put that album on when you're,
decorating the Christmas tree.
Yeah, put that on. You will not be disappointed. So funny story.
Sure.
I'll tell you. I'll try to do this as quickly as possible.
No, you're okay.
So, right before COVID, I went to see him in Boston, and I told my wife, "Do you want to go see this show?" And she's like, "Sure." She didn't know who he was.
So was it a Christmas show or just a regular country show?
It was, and I remember we got the tickets, and she's like, "This is a Christmas show," and I remember feeling disappointed. I remember the moment. I'm like, okay. I'm like, really? I want to see his other stuff. Like, I didn't even know he was doing Christmas stuff. So I was like, all right, well, I check it out. I put Glow on at the gym, and I was like, I had it in my headphones, and I remember being on the mat. I was just kind of, I had done a run on the treadmill, and I was stretching. And I just couldn't believe how great it was. I was like, this is the coolest thing. So we go to the show. I see the show. I'm so inspired. And he's got like a 17-piece big band. It was at the Wang in Boston. And I was talking to my wife the next day, and I'm like, I was so inspired by that. Like, I want to do that. I could do that. And she's like, where are you going with this? Like, she's like, it's just so off of what I do. And I'm like, no, I want to do something like that. Like, I'm just so inspired. So I think about it and talk about this as a good example of just kind of how things unfold. So I was like, how am I gonna write a Christmas song? Then I was it was like August or September. I'm with my daughter. I'm in a store called Michael's up here. It's like a craft place.
I understand. We have one here.
Okay. And I'm walking in, and they already got the Christmas stuff out. And I'm like, and I said to the woman, she was like stocking up the Christmas stuff, and I'm with my daughter. And I said, wow, you already got the Christmas stuff out. She goes, and she turns to me with this greatest grin. She's like, it's never too soon for Christmas. And I was like, that's the title. I was like, oh, I got to write that. So I kind of came up with that idea. And then I went to my co-writer. I'm like, I want to write this. So we wrote it. And then COVID started to happen. And I looked at who the producers were for Brett Eldredge's stuff. And I looked him up on the web, and they had this manager, this guy named, I won't say his name, but he's a good friend of mine now. I'm working with him a lot now. And I saw they were managed by this manager. So I cold called him. And I was like, I want to, and he's like, oh, I got to call you back. I'm on with the label. And he kind of hangs up on me. And I was like, oh, and then I was like, you know what? I'll just send a note. So I sent an email. I said, hey, we just talked. I said, I'm interested in working with these two producers. I want to do a Christmas song. And he called me back. Long story short, I ended up doing the song with the two producers that were on the record. And the guy playing piano that night, Rob Mounsey, is the guy that produced my song. And so it just came full circle. And like within like a year and a half later, I'm working with the same band, the same producers, and making this essentially a similar type of thing. And it's just like an interesting lesson of how you can be inspired, and you've got to kind of go out and ask for things and so forth. But Rob was the one playing piano that night when I saw them. And so like within 18 months, I'm making music with the guy on the stage with Brett Eldredge. So you just got to follow your heart,
Your admiration was was what I say every day. They could just say no. What's the worst they're
Yeah,
gonna say?
exactly.
No.
Yeah.
Like, it's not gonna hurt to ask. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's I've done it before. I've called up like different producers and different labels in Nashville and Los Angeles. It was like, hey, I'm on XYZ or something, and they're like, bro, that's never gonna happen. Okay.
Yeah.
I never would have known if you wouldn't have reached out, you know, and it's the same thing with you. It's like they could have told me no, but guess what? Was it ever going to keep you from doing that Christmas song? No.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just so yeah, it's just you follow your heart, and you miss 100 shots you never take, that's what that saying is. But every so often you get something right, and it's like, man, that was an amazing musical experience. And that's what I'm after now. It's like, how do you write a song, but then take it with such great players and try to elevate it and get it out into the world? I mean, it's fun, but it's hard.
So you're a songwriter, storyteller, you're all these things. Is there ever one like songwriter in general that you're just so jealous of? Because you're like, I don't know how they have that much wit that they can do a song like this, or they can make it bend to this melody.
Oh, there's so many good writers in Nashville. I mean, my Steve Seskin is my mentor, and he writes a lot of these songs with me. And he's a big writer in Nashville, and I've been fortunate enough that he's been my mentor. I'm not jealous of anybody, but he is just so good. I can't. You know how just some people.
I don't know how they do it.
No, I don't. I don't know how. All of the players that I play with now are so much better than me in terms of their musicianship. In fact, one of my goals anytime I produce a song is I want to be the worst player in the room. I want to be the worst songwriter. I want to be the worst singer. I want to be the worst guitar player. And I generally have hit that now. And there's just people in Nashville, and they're very humble too. What I've found is the best people don't have big egos. They're really, I'm not jealous. I mean, I wish I had the talent, but I work with a lot of people that are just they're like 2 or 3 standard deviations above a normal musician. I mean, in Nashville, there's 20, 25 people at each seat, they call it, that are the best in the world. And that's all they do every day is go in and they show up and they make things amazing. And there's all the writers down there that have that skill and that muscle and have been doing it for years. And that's what's hard, I think, about being independent is it really is a difficult fight, because you're going up against maybe 3. I mean, Hardy is, you look at some of those songs, 4 or 5 people writing them, there's, I was looking at this Jonas Brothers song that we were listening to, and there was 7 producers and 8 songwriters, and it's there's so much talent on some of these tracks, and so much money put behind it too to promote it, that how do you compete with that when it's just, that's my guitar back there. I have a team, but it's not going to be Warner Brothers.
You feel because I feel like this all the time, you feel like a kindergartner that is working with a 5th grader that is doing 5th grade homework.
Yeah.
You're
how do you keep doing it with those odds? Now, there's certainly advantages today. Everybody can access my music now, with a click. Everybody has it on their phone. That wasn't really the same 10 or 15 years ago. There's social media. There's there's even this podcast. There's YouTube. So there are a lot of tools, but that's nothing the labels haven't gained mastery of either. So everything's just been amped up. I don't know. It's really hard. That's why you got to love it. But there's always somebody better than you. There's always going to be somebody who can sing better. There's always somebody with a bigger audience. There's always somebody with more money, better singer, better whatever. That's life. So I think it's just how do you become the best you can be? How do you develop yourself and do the best that you can? Hard to do though in American culture. You always want more streams. You always want more likes. You always want more of an audience. That's the human condition. So it's just how do you balance those two? I think that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's the human greed. It's how can I get more? You could have the most money in the world, but you're looking out how to get another penny.
Yeah. Yeah.
But man, look, as we kind of wind down here, I kind of want to know, we're close to the holidays. What are some of your favorite holiday traditions?
Man, I would say I love going to get pumpkins with my kids. I love putting the tree up. I love decorating the tree, and I love putting Christmas music on, on a Sunday morning or a Saturday morning. It's just all those things that you do. Um, it's just a time to kind of reflect and be a little bit more mellow and, be with people. And so that's why I like making the music too. If I could be a little background of people's lives in that moment, that's pretty cool. And I've been fortunate enough to do that a little bit, certainly in my own home and other people's homes. So, you know, uh, if that helps somebody, feel a little bit better in that moment, there's not much more you can do in terms of a musician or a songwriter. So I just hope my music makes people, happy. Or, I mean, the level we talked about with Sunday Drive is a whole nother level, like to just move people. But I love all of those traditions. So I don't know if that answers the question or not, but
Yeah. So when you're sitting around drinking some apple cider or hot chocolate or hell, even some hot whiskey, what do you on Christmas Eve? Kind of what's that? Did you ever have in your family growing up as a kid? Did you ever have a family tradition of like Christmas or Thanksgiving or anything, and you kind of put that over into your family when you had kids and a wife?
trying to think. Family tradition. I don't know. I think we're just like everybody else.
Yeah.
I the one thing I would say is I kind of say this in some of my songs. Like I don't mind things starting early. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I definitely don't mind getting the tree early. I don't mind decorating the house, not crazy, but I'm not one of those people. It's like, oh, it's too early. I get it because about half the world thinks it's too early. The other half are like, oh, let's go. Um, but I don't mind getting the tree, early and getting. I love when the house is decorated. It's just
Me
it's a
at,
small pleasure. It's like
at
with
this
everything
point,
else
it's
going on in the world.
right. At this point, it's like whatever makes you happy, man. If you
Yeah,
want to put it up in April, hey,
yeah,
it's like when people like I can think the most common thing what happened was when Lady Antebellum changed their name to Lady A because they
hmm
realized what antebellum meant like
yeah,
years
yeah.
ago. And there was this big fuss and fight about, oh my God, it's true. And I go, is it bothering you? Are you losing any sleep over the fact that they changed their name? And it's
Yeah,
like, are you losing any sleep over the fact that somebody's putting their tree up on November 2nd?
yeah,
If you are, then you have some real major problems, my friend, and you need to
yeah,
go. You need to go see a shrink or something because, like, it's whatever,
yeah,
like, whatever makes you happy. If smoking cigarettes
yeah.
makes you happy, I would like suggest against it, but have at it.
Yeah, my daughter, I mean, she starts watching, she loves Christmas. She
Yeah.
starts watching those Hallmark movies,
Oh Lord.
they start really early and she's already listening to Christmas music in the shower and stuff. And so we just kind of tap into that together. It's good with me, and it's only there for a couple of weeks, a few weeks of
Yeah, but it's those
having
but it's those Hallmark Christmas movies that do it for me. I can't do those. I
I
they are
know.
so
They're all,
they're so they're so cheesy. They have the same exact plot. You know exactly what's going to happen from
oh
30
yeah,
seconds to the end. Like
same
you know.
actors. Yeah.
I think
She's
I've
always
seen
got them
Jana
on.
Kramer in like 98 of them. So
I know she's always got them on, and I get roped in sometime because she's only gonna be with me so
right.
long in terms of in when she goes to moves away or something like that. But I don't know. It's all good. But yeah, it's funny. I guess we're doing this right around the holidays. So, but I've noticed this year, I don't feel like people are. It feels like everybody's like, wow, Thanksgiving's next week. It doesn't feel like
It
everybody
doesn't.
was amped up this year.
This year
Everybody's been
has
saying
been
that.
this year has been crazy, man. It's been a super fast year. I don't know,
Yeah,
like I've never understood people. Like I've had long days, really long days where you're just like this day will never end. But I've
yeah,
never had a long year. where a year
Yeah.
just feels like eternity. Like there's long weeks, long days, possibly even long months, but there's never a long year. It's always snap of a
Do you
finger.
do you think it's just we're coming out of COVID and this is the first year where it's like a snapback craziness?
Maybe because I think now everything's full on now. Like there's full
Yeah.
concerts, the movie theaters are full again. There's
Yeah.
yeah, nobody cares about if you're gonna swap spit at the park. You know, it's just
Yeah.
when 2 years ago, hell, even
Yeah.
even last year, people were like, "Hey, man, I need kind of my 6 feet a little bit."
Right.
But now everybody's like, "Hey, you know what? COVID is over. Let's go." You know, or
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. No, I'm with
that's a
you.
great possibility. That's a great
Yeah.
possibility that COVID is far, because I remember when that happened, man, and that was not that was a very like that was a long year. That
Yeah.
COVID was because you're at home,
Yeah.
and luckily for guys like us that can do
Hmm.
this stuff from home, like I say, COVID was a bad year, but for me, and for you, and for all the other artists, was great because that was everybody's schedule was wide open.
Yeah.
You know,
And we learned how to, like, I learned how to write over Zoom, and it
yeah,
freed a lot of things up. It's funny though, because I say in the, it's good to have this new record out, because my album that I made, during COVID, man, I look back and it's like, I guess I was in a fog. I felt like I was writing great stuff, but now I look at the record and it was dark. And I had my producer got cancer while I was making that
wow,
album, and it's just like everything. And so this new one just feels more light and fresh to me, but I look back on my last album and I'm like, wow, this is like the stuff I was writing about, man. I made sure I never wrote a song about COVID, but man, there were some undertones and it just kind of seeped through. So uh but I mean, you just can't control it. You just do the best you can while you're
you
doing
know.
it. But
The worst thing that I found about COVID was when TV shows would come out, they would always implement the COVID-19 in there, and it's like you watch TV to get away from it, not to be
yeah.
reminded. You can watch the news for that. It was like I remember when all those those medical shows or all that were dealing with the COVID stuff, and I was like, I could go to the emergency room right now and see this exact same scene. So show me something different.
Yeah. 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 No, it's good to be through it, but I know what you mean.
Yeah.
This year's been, it's like full force.
It has been full force. It has been thousands of hours of work and practice and all that, man.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you coming on here, dude. And
Oh
good
man.
luck. Good luck with the album. As you can tell, I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because you're on here. I never have a person on here that I do not enjoy, or I know somebody in my family or my friend circle like. But you're one of those guys that was here from the beginning.
Yeah.
And here's a funny kind of out there thought from your early episode. Was a lot of people aren't going to know this, but I used to be like, Howard Stern is my hero, right?
Hmm.
Obviously, I used to do these Howard Stern-esque interviews where I would like pound guest, and it made me terrible. People hated me. People would not come on the show, and then I changed my ways. And you were the first guest after I had changed my ways, after
Mm.
I had went from the Howard Stern to what it is now, and that's just
Oh, so you were trying to be like him and be controversial
oh
and stuff like
man,
that?
yeah, it was bad. It was
Oh
bad,
yeah.
man. It was. I would pull up like dirt from people, and they'd be like, "How did you know that?" It'd be like, "Don't." Yeah, yeah. It's not a proud moment.
Oh
It's not a proud moment
yeah.
at
Yeah.
all. But
I'm
you
glad you
learn
didn't
and
do it to
grow.
me. I don't know what you would have found, but no, I mean, that was a fun conversation back then. I mean,
Yeah,
but
and they were all by cell phone, by phone
I
calls.
know. Well, even remember that, like, we weren't on camera or anything. Like, that was 19. That wasn't even.
Yeah,
Maybe it was. Yeah, was it 2019 or
I man,
2020?
I can. You know what? I can find out real quick. I have it. I had it pulled up earlier.
Yeah.
Because I
Was
am
that?
curious, just like you are.
Yeah. Was that? Did you even put that out?
I did put it out.
What is it on? Yeah,
It,
because like it's funny how
it's
podcasts turn to Zoom.
That was so it went out April of 2019, but we recorded
Okay.
it October of 18. So
October of 18.
5 or 6 years.
Oh yeah. 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 I must have just had my first Nashville single out then. I didn't even have
Probably. I think
the
that's what it
record
was.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
But
don't even know how we got connected. That's the fun of it, but I'm glad we did.
I don't either, man. But
Yeah.
look, dude, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for the hour. Thanks for coming back on and wanting to do the show again.
Hey, thank you, Dylan. I appreciate it. And congratulations on all your success. It's always great talking to you, and happy holidays to you. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving and happy holidays.
Man, right back at you. I'm looking forward to all your success in the coming years, and I would love to have you back on if you got a new project coming out in the next 8-9 months to a year.
Let's do it.
Let's wait another 6 years, and then we'll do this all over again.
No, we'll do it quicker than that.
All right, man. All right, Richard. Have a good one, man.
Thanks a lot. Take care,
Thank you,
Dylan.
dude. All right.